Hello, good morning. It's Monday, it's 9:15. I'm Victoria, Derbyshire, and today we are live from Newcastle.
I'm Amy. I came to the North East to come to university, graduating with a Masters in 2012. Since then, I've worked a variety of short contract jobs. I currently have 5 jobs.
5 jobs?
Yeah. So I sometimes start at 9 in the morning and finish at midnight, working back-to-back shifts on different jobs.
I'm Diane. I'm a mature student and a single parent to 3 daughters. My financial situation definitely is worse off. I live on student finance, and basically due to bureaucracy, due to housing benefits, etc., I'm definitely worse off, and I struggle at times. And I've had to use food banks to feed my children, and I've had to choose whether to heat or eat. This is my real life. I don't choose to go to a food bank through choice. It's not something I want to do. It's not something I feel proud of.
Very, very much for her, but of course the answer for Diane's problems and for other problems similar to hers are more jobs, and more jobs will come if businesses thrive. And in the North East, you know, we've seen the results of lower interest rates and reformed business taxes, and as a result you're getting more businesses created and more jobs created.
And it's a complete myth to think that the whole economy has to rely on business people. I'll tell you what it relies on. It relies on nurses and firefighters and people who went to the bins and people who do ordinary work. And most business people are only in it to feather their own nest and line their own pockets, and it's a disgrace, and we've had to put up with it for too long.
We've just heard a lady there saying, you know, government have created 5 jobs, or 5 jobs have been created. She's doing 5 of them. She still can't pay her bills. And we've got Diane here. Who, when she tells us about her experience as mother, it doesn't shame her. It shames all of us, because in a society, it's not this chap who's running his own business's fault that we have an economy that doesn't work for working people. But actually, what we need is an economy where everyone feels that they have a stake in it. And partly, yes, of course, that's about business success. Of course, that's about creating jobs. But it's also about people who actually do those jobs, being able to go to work and come home, look the kids in the face and be proud about the fact that they can pay their bills.
From the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives, you spent 5 years in coalition together, and as a result of your government's tax and benefit changes, many people are worse off now. Are you sorry for that?
We've had to take these decisions because of, everybody knows, because of the mess that we inherited.
Everybody knows what the explanation is.
Hold on.
Are you sorry for that?
No. But we've done it in a way that has created a record number of jobs. But I would totally agree with this lady here that there is more to do. I mean, the fact that the statistics show that there's record numbers of jobs, in a way demonstrates...
Mr Hancock, can I just
It's true, but it demonstrates there is more to do.
In cash terms, the richest have contributed the most under Liberal Democrats and Labour, but as a proportion of their income, the poorest have contributed the most.
But
you cannot be proud of that.
As a proportion of their income, the top fifth have contributed more than the poorest. We're not.
No, that's not right. I'm sorry, Lord Newby. That's not right. That's not right. But the poorest have been hit hardest as a proportion of their income. Are you sorry for that?
Nobody wanted to make any kind of cuts in 2010. But, as Labour pointed out, the last government had run out of money. Some cuts had to be made. They've been difficult. We hope, now that the economy is moving forward...
But the poorest were hit hardest. That cannot be right, can it?
We have made...
Take responsibility for their actions.
A half-truth is probably worse than a lie, isn't it? There are more people in work in the private sector. There are 5 million people in this country who earn under the living wage. So it's the quality of jobs. It's the fact that a lot of those people...
Why do we have education in England at £9,000 a year? People struggling to pay that. Why was educational maintenance allowance in England done away with when it's being expanded in Scotland? If people are coming off benefit into jobs, and yes, there are jobs, why do we increase the work allowance so there isn't a cliff edge and people can actually take work? I think we should all, I think we all agree the minimum wage should go up, but where's the encouragement for the living wage? the real encouragement for government. I mean, if the Scottish Government can pay all its employees and NHS staff the living wage, why is the UK Government not paying the living wage to make work pay?
You're promising £12 billion cuts to the welfare bill. You've told people about £2 billion, and you won't tell voters the details of the rest because...
Well, we've gone into some detail, as you say. We've set out that
but the £10 billion, why won't you tell
benefits.
voters the rest?
Well, over the last 5 years, we've managed to make savings in the welfare budget.
But the £10 billion that you haven't told, that you haven't explained, why won't you tell voters about that?
Well, because what we've got to do is, as we have in the last 5 years, work through making those savings. And I think we've got a track record that shows that we can deliver.
Is there anyone here who thinks, as a voter, they're entitled to hear the details?
Yes. Yeah, well, as I've said, we have examples that we've set out, but we've also got a track record over the last 5 years of making some savings. Yeah, and we've set out...
Tell us it then.
Well, we've set out in far more detail than any of the other parties in terms of the £5 billion.
Let me see if I can help you. I've been onto the relevant government website to look at what you could cut or tax. There's the blind person's allowance.
I'm not going to go through a list now because I'm not in a position to set out those budgets.
The carer's allowance, do you fancy that?
I'm not in a position to set out those budgets, but we've been clear.
The guardian's allowance for those bringing up children whose parents have died.
You can keep asking the same question. I'll keep giving the same answer. You know, I'm not in a position to set out those details. But what we have done
are you going all out to win this election?
Excuse me. You guys,
just a minute.
You guys are up for a job interview and you don't want to answer the questions. Answer the questions that are being put to you.
Yeah, I've set out.
We want answers.
I've set out where we are going to make savings. For instance, in making sure that we keep a cap on working age benefits. We've brought in the benefits cap. And also areas where we are going to protect, for instance, the pensioner entitlements. But I'm not in a position to go through a list of all the individual benefits. But what we've demonstrated is that we have a track record and an ability to make these savings.
Child benefit, maybe it's that. You've taken that away from some middle and high earners. Maybe you think it's time to take it away from people on low incomes or no incomes?
Well, as I say, we have set out some of the details of how we're going to do this, and we also have a track record that demonstrates that we can make these sorts of savings.
Are you going all out to win this election?
Yes, of course.
Do you think you deserve to if you're hiding things from the electorate?
I don't think I'm hiding things. I've answered the question very clearly.
No, come on. Not even you believe you've answered the question clearly. Come on. You want to cut rail fares by 10%, create 1 million jobs paying a living wage of 10 quid an hour, build 500,000 rented homes, scrap tuition fees, and I think plans for the £72 a week citizens' income, which you'd pay to absolutely everybody, are back on, aren't they?
They're towards the end of the Parliament.
Right, OK, so you'd give that to millionaires?
Everybody would pay for it, so everybody would get it. But that's further down the line.
And how on earth will you pay for all that?
Well, if we actually look at... We've heard all these old politicians talking about how they're going to cut things, but one of the things we really need to do is look at tax in this country, because...
so you'd put the top rate of tax up to 60%?
Well, we would 60p in the pound for the higher rate earners, which is what it was when Margaret Thatcher was in power,
Sure, which brings you in £2 billion a year.
Yeah, but let's look at other things. Let's look at things such as the wealth tax. We'd like a wealth tax on the top 1% of the population.
Which would bring in £4 billion a year.
No, that would bring in £24 billion pounds a year.
No, come off it.
It would. 1%.
Who told you that?
Well, 1%. 1% rise. The 1% of the most wealthy, with over £3 million worth of assets, would bring in that sort of amount of money.
Well, in France, you probably know they have a wealth tax there. It's triggered at £800,000, and it brings in £4 billion a year in France.
So, I'm currently a very, very undecided voter. I don't know who to vote for. My question is, if you won't tell us the full details of what you're going to do, how am I meant to find someone to trust, and how am I meant to find someone to vote for?
I don't mind who responds. None of you have given details, so...
You're not telling us what you're going to do?
It's a fair question. Look, I think, you know, the truth of the matter is that the Labour Party have laid out more of our plans, but there is still a legitimate question there. I think the other thing we'd say, if we go into a coalition, what happens with coalitions is you go and vote, and then the politicians go away into a room and decide what happens. So a vote for the SNP, a vote for Lib Dems is a vote for actually not being able to hold any of us to our manifestos.
Okay.
And it is actually, at the end of this day, at the end of this election, we're going to get either a Labour or a Conservative-led government. We've laid out a manifesto today, which I think is more specific than others. You have got a fair criticism.
To admit that the electoral system is broken, sir, and your party will not gain 50% of the votes, much less 50% of the seats. We desperately need a total reform of the system, and it must be first priority, a long, decent debate as soon as the election's over, sir.
All right, well, we did...